Podcasting is more than just talking. It's listening. BSing with Bob Schmidt.
The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast, featuring business owner, business grower, angel investor, entrepreneur, and author of the new book, The Gratitude Formula, a 7-step success system to create a life that you love. May McCarthy joining me. And May and I have had conversation on a couple of different occasions on my radio program, and I wanted to bring you in and invite you in to talk on my podcast. This new book, The Gratitude Formula, how did you come up with the idea to have a formula on being thankful?
Well, it's really interesting, Bob. I wrote a first book, which we talked about, called The Path to Wealth, and it did really well, and lots of people worldwide have been able to achieve more of their goals as a result of using a simple morning routine to prime their brain for success. And one of the things that I recognized in hearing feedback from thousands of different readers is that they were able to manifest and achieve goals pretty easily by being disciplined in using the daily goal attainment practice. And this was true for the things that they believed were possible. But they all had some goals that they just didn't think were possible, and they're trying to use a goal attainment strategy to achieve them and getting blocked. And isn't that the case? I mean, if you don't believe that you actually can achieve something, then no matter how much you talk about it, think about it, and feel about it, if that overriding thought of disbelief is going to prevent you from receiving any intuitive messages from your subconscious pointing out and illuminating any possibilities. So I decided to write the gratitude formula to help people to remember that you've got to shift your belief to possibility. You don't need to figure out how you're going to achieve the goal, right? Because that's going to be revealed to you once you shift your belief. So shifting beliefs is the most important thing, and gratitude is a huge part of shifting beliefs.
How do we know what goals to set so that way they're obtainable goals then? The ones that we can put a timeline on or an end date on that we're going to be able to get that one done?
Well, for instance, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So I have a friend of mine, and one of her goals was to get a new job. And I asked her, well, if you got a new job, what would your life be like? And she said she'd feel more appreciated and valued by her employees and by her employer and customers, and that she would be paid more. So I said, well, wait a minute. You don't really want to have a new job. What you want is to feel more appreciated, valued, and be paid more. And she said, well, sure. I said, okay, start being grateful for that in advance. Now, she had been an accounting manager and stuck in this one job for years and years and years and years. And she had all these thoughts going through her head about, oh, my gosh, I'm too old, to get a new job. I haven't kept up with, the latest and greatest in accounting practices, and therefore no one would hire me. And so she had all these doubts. And isn't that the way of human nature?
Yes.
We start doubting that we can achieve something just because we haven't achieved it in the recent past. So I said, look, in addition to using your gratitude daily practice, which is to be grateful for having the perfect job where you feel appreciated and valued by your employer and your coworkers and your customers, and that you are rewarded with a minimum or more of X number of dollars. In addition to that daily focusing on your goal with gratitude, I want you to go out and find some stories about other people that have changed jobs who are your age and who have gone on to be even more successful and are living the life that they love, and that they're in jobs that are really fulfilling and satisfying for them. So she agreed. As she started to read these additional stories about other people achieving the kind of success that she wanted, her beliefs started to shift into possibility. She started to think, wow, there's lots of people out here that are doing what I want to do, which is to have a satisfying job where I feel appreciated and am paid well. And if they could do it, I could do it. So in addition to using gratitude to describe her completed goals as though they're already done, she made what she wanted familiar and welcome. Well, it wasn't very long after that that she was, and I also asked her to do one more thing. I said, if you want to feel appreciated, start giving appreciation first. So one person per day needs to hear from you via text, via phone call, in person, via email, that they are appreciated by you. You need to do that. So she agreed. Well, it wasn't very long after that, in using all of these different techniques, that she was outside of her office, and she has a bunch of people that work for her, and they're in those modular offices, those cubes outside of her office door. And she's outside of her office getting ready to go to a meeting, and she notices an executive vice president for the company at the end of the hallway, and he's walking right towards her. He stops in front of her, drops to his knees, and starts flailing his arms in homage. All of her employees' heads pop up over their cubes, and they're all watching this, and he is saying, look, I want you to know how much I appreciate you and your team. You guys caught an error that could have cost us thousands and thousands of dollars. You guys are the greatest. You're the best. And here he is doing this in front of all of her employees, and she's feeling pretty good. He arranges for all the employees and her to get a bonus. And she felt really appreciated and was more included in proactive measures going forward as part of a vital and important member of the team to grow her company. She didn't even have to change her job, and she felt more appreciated and got a raise. So when you want to shift beliefs, in addition to using a daily goal attainment practice to focus on what you want as though you already achieve it with gratitude, you need to go find stories and other people that have achieved what you wanted and make that familiar and welcome. And if there's an opportunity for you to start giving something that represents what you want to achieve first, that will jumpstart your good so that you can start to notice more possibilities sooner.
Wow. I was actually going to ask you. I was going to actually ask you. How do you go about showing gratitude if you're stuck in a job like your friend, and then all of a sudden, you opened it up and you told us how to do that. That's fantastic. May, how do you find the stories that may mimic your life so that way you can look, for yourself to maybe open those windows up for yourself?
Well, in my book, I have lots and lots of different examples of that. One woman who was a scientist wanted to be a paid singer. Another guy that was a real estate agent in San Diego wanted to be a hugely successful real estate agent. And when you find people, you can go online and find stories about people who, let's say you don't want to have diabetes. Your whole family has told you ever since you were a little kid that you're going to have diabetes. It's a medical condition that's hereditary, and you don't want to have that experience. Well, go find other people who have had diabetes as part of their medical history, their family medical history, and who have not had to experience it. There are lots and lots of stories on the internet. You'd be surprised when you start telling other people what your goals are, how many other people say, gosh, I know somebody who experienced that success. Let me give you their phone number. When I made a decision to write a first book, I had all sorts of beliefs that were telling me it was not possible. I went to school in Hawaii, and that's the worst school system in the country, I believe. It was ranked 50 out of 50 when I was going to high school there. All right. Yeah. Well, it's like a foreign language when you're growing up there. They have their own dialect, and it's, anyway, it was great fun to grow up there. But nonetheless, not the greatest school system. And the idea of being a published author was so far away from something that I thought was possible. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm an angel investor. I know business well. But to write a book and compare myself to other authors who I absolutely love and who have beautiful prose and have, spent their entire lives learning to be a great author, I just didn't think it was possible. As soon as I made it a goal and started trying to look for people who had become successful authors, I was able to find lots and lots of stories about all sorts of people. And as my beliefs started to shift, because I started thinking, if they could do it, I could do it. As soon as they started to shift, more and more people showed up as published authors. I mean, I even met some in the line at the grocery store. While I'm waiting to check out with groceries, the woman behind me said she was a published author. And, I mean, you meet them everywhere, and that just strengthens your belief in possibility. And that's why I wrote the gratitude formula, was to help people to shift their beliefs into possibility. Because as Muhammad Ali said, he said, as soon as you believe something is possible, you start to notice more opportunities to take steps. And everything seems to shift to be for your good. I mean, you start to be able to notice more and more opportunities to take steps once you believe something is possible.
May, do you think that it has to do with your eyes are opened all of a sudden? Because I know that almost every time I've bought a new car, I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm the only person that has this. Oh, there's one there, and there's another one over there, and hey, look, there's that same car right there, and there's another one of the same color.
Right. Well, that's because it was a goal, and you were probably excited about getting that new car, and you had all these emotions, and you knew that was going to be your new car even before you paid for it, because you had narrowed down all the options. And then you do start to notice more possibilities. So it's similar in that we can do some things to enable our subconscious and our intuition to point out and illuminate more possibilities for us to take action. But it's my experience, and also from gathering lots and lots of stories from people who have been practicing the goal attainment strategies that I write about, what I found was that if you don't shift your brain, if you don't shift your belief to one of possibility first for those really big goals that are different than anything you experienced before or bigger than anything you've experienced before, if you don't believe that it's at least possible, it's almost like your brain that's trying to protect you from disappointment puts that illumination, puts a damper, puts a blanket over that light, and puts these intuitive messages on mute. So you just don't notice the possibilities until you shift your beliefs.
Do you think that we all cause our own self-doubt, and so when we've got our own self-doubt, that we're more worried about trying to make things happen?
I think we get into habits, and we get into habits of thinking about what's not possible more than we think about what's possible. And in addition to that, we have this idea, I mean, we don't want to fail. We don't want to be disappointed. We are fearful of the unknown as a society. If something doesn't make rational sense, if we can't figure out what the outcome's going to be in advance, we get fearful of taking any steps. So what happens, Albert Einstein is one of my favorite people to quote. And he said that we all have this intuitive mind that's a sacred gift. And we have this rational mind that's a faithful servant. It will do whatever we tell it to do. Just like when you decided you wanted to buy a new car, your rational mind started to filter hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars that are driving around in order for you to notice the cars that were in alignment with your goal.
Mm-hmm.
So he said we have this rational mind that's a faithful servant, but somehow in our society, we've decided to honor this servant instead of the gift of intuition. And what I mean by that is that when we have a question about anything, what do?
I do research or ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, we Google it, or we ask subject matter experts about it, and we think about every possible step that we could take in regards to that question. But we actually have learned as a society to go one step further. And not only do we think of every possible step, but we think of every possible outcome that our rational mind, our limited rational mind, can consider. And if we don't like any of those possibilities, what do?
Quit. We quit or don't do anything, yeah.
Exactly. And with the goal attainment strategies that I write about, you're not allowed to do nothing anymore. What you can do is do some things to enable your intuitive mind to actually have an ability to chime in. So even though you get an intuitive lead that doesn't make any rational sense, you can actually quiet your rational mind so that your intuitive mind can give you a little bit more information for you to consider.
How do you do that? How do you quiet your mind? Because my mind, it's on overdrive all the time, it seems.
Well, you figuratively stomp your foot and say, hey, intuition, if that message was from you, I need another lead. And then your rational mind is confused, and so your intuitive mind gets a chance to chime in. I'll give you an example. So I travel about 150,000 miles a year.
Wow.
And I have a routine. I get off a flight, I get my bags, my rental car, I go to the hotel and drop everything off. Then I get back in the car and I go to the closest grocery store to pick up protein shakes and water and stuff like that that I need for my stay. So I find myself in Cleveland. I'm in the car. It's 9 o'clock at night, and I get this very strong thought to go to a grocery store that's 15 minutes away. Now, at this particular stage of my business, it's a pretty early startup. I've made my projections. I'm using my daily goal attainment strategy to be grateful in advance for a minimum or more of $400,000 in revenue so that I can meet my goals for growing the company and serving customers. And I wanted it by a particular period of time. Well, so I'm in the car, and I get this idea to go to a grocery store that's 15 minutes away. Now, I've been to Cleveland before. I always stay at this hotel. I know that the closest grocery store is 5 minutes away. Well, my rational mind wants to remind me of that. So here comes that rational mind that Albert Einstein talked about. And it's telling me, May, it's 9 o'clock at night. Your appointment's at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. You're going to be way too tired if you go driving around town tonight when everything that you want is available just 5 minutes away. Just go get what you need, get back to the hotel, and get a good night's sleep. That's what your rational mind tells you. So you figuratively stomp your foot and say, hey, if this is something I'm supposed to pay attention to, give me another lead. That gives your intuitive mind an opportunity to chime in, and mine did. And mine said, look, May, it's 9 o'clock at night, but it's 6 o'clock in Seattle. It's too early for you to go to sleep anyway. And who knows, maybe everything you want will be on sale at the other store. Just make the drive. So I thought, okay, I'll make the drive.
Right.
Who knows? So I parked my car, and I'm walking into the grocery store, and there's a guy I recognize walking out at exactly the same time. This was a potential very large customer who I had met at a trade show 6 months before. He wasn't returning any of my phone calls or emails for an appointment. And here we are, face to face. Well, we strike up a nice conversation. He asks about the growth of our company. He's impressed with who we've signed contracts with. And he said, look, while you're in town, why don't you come make a presentation to our group? Well, that led to another and another, and eventually a contract worth more than $400,000 in the time frame that I wanted. So most of us that have gone to business school, or any school for that matter, are told, create a goal, and think of every single possible step that you could take to achieve that goal. No one would say, first step, drive across town in Cleveland
right.
at 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
But this is why people like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Steven Spielberg, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, and the list goes on, why they say it's so valuable to rely on intuition for your success, and that sometimes it takes courage to do that. And in my books, I write about how you can develop and recognize those intuitive messages more often so that you can notice possible steps that you could take to achieve your goals. And the funniest part is they won't make rational sense, but you'll build up confidence as you create proof of taking steps that don't make sense and achieving your goals in an easier way.
May, do you think that we often sabotage ourselves by not listening to that inside voice?
Absolutely. And often people will recognize it after the fact. They'll say, oh my gosh, my gut was trying to tell me not to do that or to do that. And if I would have not done it, I wouldn't be in this pickle. Or if I would have done it, I would have had this great achievement. No, we all receive intuitive messages, but if our rational mind doesn't understand them, it tries to talk us out of it. And people have to learn how to allow their intuitive mind to chime in, and I describe that in my books, how to do that.
That's probably worth the cost of the book right there, just to learn how to do that.
Yeah, I've been using it for a very, very long time, and I can tell you that my success in business and in life is absolutely due to that. I mean, I had a cancer scare, and I followed the same goal attainment practice for good health and had the same kind of unrational directions to take steps and catch a cancer well before even the doctors thought it should have been caught, and have been cancer-free ever since.
Is a lot of what you're talking about, May, does it deal with spirituality plays into this and you're able to figure some of the stuff out, or you're just open to gaining more insightfulness on yourself?
I think that spirituality, as it relates to what I describe, I would say yes, it plays a part simply because you can't see intuition and you can't see the source of your intuition. So something that you can't see, you can certainly use whatever spiritual or philosophical or religious, whatever feels right to you in terms of describing that source of something that you can't see that is providing you with good information. Some people in my workshops will call it God. Some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it, I just gave it a title because I'm a CEO, so I gave it a title and call it the Chief Spiritual Officer. But you can call that source of this intelligence anything you want. But it doesn't negate the fact that it exists for each and every one of us all the time if we want to tap into it and use it as a tool for our success.
How do we remember some of those things? Because I get these flashes of intuition often. As I mentioned earlier, my mind is always racing. How do we, tap into remembering, hey, that one idea is going to be might be something worth looking into. Oh, that one's a really good one to look into too. This one maybe not so much. If you've got them coming at you all the time, how do you remember the ones that would be maybe most important or most imperative to look at now?
So I ask for another lead a lot. I'll get an intuitive hit, a gut instinct, a strong idea or a thought, and I want to make sure that it's not just a random thought, because I have random thoughts all day long, as I'm sure you do too. I mean, just stuff just shows up in my head, and so I'll just say, hey, if this is something I'm supposed to pay attention to, give me another lead. If it's something I'm supposed to pay attention to, I will get another strong thought, or somebody will say something to me that is in alignment with it. I'll notice something that's in alignment with it. I mean, I remember I had an opportunity to do business with a $5.5 billion company down in San Diego, and I was just a little biased. Like, here we're a small company, and if they're reselling our products and they don't pay us on time, it could be detrimental to my business. They could slow pay me to the point where I get myself into a financial situation where I have to get bailed out, and lo and behold, they might be able to pick up my company for a very small amount of money. So I was very concerned about these kinds of things. And every time I got a lead saying, you should investigate doing business with them, I just kept saying, I need another lead. I need another lead. I mean, I must have done that over 50 times. Well, I'm driving across the bridge one day to work, and I see this billboard that I hadn't seen before. It says, your fortune will be made in San Diego. And I just started cracking up because right then I noticed that. I could have driven by it 100 times, and I just never noticed it before. But that day I noticed it, and I just started laughing. So I went to the office, and and I called them. I said, I'm willing to consider. Well, everything that unfolded after that, all the ideas that I had to put guarantees in the contract and things that would protect my financial interest, just came to me, in really wonderful ways. I met somebody else that had done business with them, and this is how they protected themselves. I mean, really uncanny accidents. Well, they're not accidents. What they are is other forms of intuition, because they can come through messages through other people as well. And my interests were completely protected. We made boatloads of money together. We ended up selling our company later to them, and were able to serve thousands more customers in a much greater way. Everybody benefited.
So has all of this stuff kind of come together and helped you out in your serial entrepreneurship and your authorship, in your being an angel investor? So you're using the intuition a lot of times, and the shifting of the beliefs, and so you've used all of those things to become successful, May?
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a lot easier when you don't have to do it all yourself and limit yourself to just your rational understanding. There is an intelligence, and like I said, when we look at Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, we look at all of them as exceptions, when in fact what they should be looked at is as examples. We can do what they're doing if we do the same thing they're doing, which is to trust and rely on intuition, to rely on this intelligence that illuminates itself, these possibilities that illuminate themselves when we're focused on what we want outcomes to be with gratitude. But most people, they wake up every morning, they pick up their mobile devices, they turn on the news, and they allow other people to program what's important to them. And what I'm asking people to do is spend the first half an hour in the morning programming what they think is important to themselves. And if success and financial abundance and perfect health and right relationships, great recreation, a fabulous job where you're using your skills and talents in really fun and remarkable and fulfilling ways, if all of those things are important to them, start their day out being grateful for having already achieved those, and everything else throughout the day will line itself up to be more in alignment with those goals. But if you're programming yourself with what everybody else thinks is important, you're going to see more evidence of that instead.
You know, May, over the last few weeks, I've taken Facebook off my phone to kind of start to do that a little bit more. And I'll tell you what, the extra minutes that I have in my day, it's pretty gosh darn amazing.
Yeah.
So, May, what got you into the gratitude way of life?
You know, I was asked this question. Forbes just did an article on the gratitude formula, and that was the first question that I was asked was, when did you start recognizing that gratitude was part of a success tool? And I think it was when I had my first business. It was the summer before my sophomore year in college, and I started a business, and we grew that while I was going to school full-time to about 250 employees. And I remember getting so excited when we would meet our sales goals. I was so grateful. I'd dance around. I'm so excited that we met them. And then as I started to continue to create sales goals, I just somehow, now that I had proof that my forecasting was accurate, I started to think, of course I'm going to achieve those goals because I have all this proof of having achieved them over the last several years. So I started to just be grateful for achieving my forecast, my sales goals in advance, and started remembering that fun feeling of dancing around and being happy that I achieved my goals. And, I'm 19 years old, 19 to 21 years old at this point. But I somehow there was this recognition that I could be grateful for what I want in advance and imagine feeling excited about the achievement of those future goals. And consequently, we were able to achieve all of those goals. So that's when I first started to use it. And then my daily goal planning routine, got morphed a little bit more over the years. But that's when I started using gratitude as a tool for success, and I've used it ever since.
May McCarthy joining us on the BS with Bob Schmidt podcast. It seems like you've had a lot of great successes, and that is wonderful. But I think a lot of people end up with some failures on their way to success and learn from their failures. I'd like to ask the question about if you can explain a failure that you've had and how you've overcome it.
Well, first of all, I don't think there are any failures, and there's no mistake. There are no mistakes and no failures. There are only learning experiences.
Interesting concept.
And I guess the greatest learning experience that I had, which was painful, was in choosing a partner for one of my companies who I didn't know very well. I got caught up in the sale of his abilities and didn't vet him as much as I should have, and consequently it became a very expensive and painful separation when we decided to not be partners anymore. And as it turned out, now that I look back on it, it was actually a blessing, because there were three of us that were co-founders, and two of us were the two that left because we weren't in agreement with the third partner. And it wasn't required that we get bought out. That was not a requirement of our operating agreement. But they did buy us out for millions of dollars, and we walked away, and somehow it slipped through that they didn't mandate a change in our non-compete period, which they forgot to look at, and which was only 1 year. So we took a year off and came back a year later and started a competing company and had all of the funding that we needed from them to dominate the marketplace and become market share leader.
That's wonderful. What type of business are you in?
Well, those two companies were software and equipment for giant hospitals to automate their drug distribution processes.
The book is called The Gratitude Formula, and you ask questions at the end of each of the sections here. I want to ask you one of the questions from your book. Describe a few things that you've done repeatedly since you were a child that give you great joy.
I love that. You're in the section on purpose, and I believe that purpose leads to profits, personally or as a company. If you know your purpose, the why that you exist, then you tend to be more fulfilled, you feel more engaged, more passionate, more motivated, and consequently will be more successful. So when I was a little kid, I lived on a street, and at one time there were 60 kids on our street. Lots and lots of fun, and we played outside a lot. And I loved telling stories. So my friends and I would get together, and we would write plays. And then we would perform them. And we mandated that all the parents and other kids came, and they'd have to bring their chairs with them and line them up in our driveway, because we had a 5-car garage that was a carport. And they'd line up, and we sold concessions, and we would put on a play. And they had to pay 25 cents to come.
You were a businesswoman way back then.
And so we told the story. So I loved to tell stories, and I love to take complicated ideas and make them really simple to understand and provide entertainment and fair exchange of value. So that was one of the things that I love to do, and I still do that today. I take very complicated ideas and make them really easy to understand and implement, and I help everyone around me to be successful. That's my passion. I love to help other people succeed.
May McCarthy, the author of the book, The Gratitude Formula, a 7-step success system to create a life that you love. What are 3 takeaways that somebody could get from your book, May?
The first is that they are incredibly powerful. Each and every person has created the life that they're living today, and that's good news, because they can create the life that they want to live simply by staying focused on what they want the outcomes with gratitude every single day in a daily practice. The second is that success is a system, not a secret. And if they use a system to achieve success and they're disciplined, just like they were when they learned to ride a bike or drive a car or read or write or type on that crazy keyboard that's not even in alphabetical order, I mean, they put in some concerted physical and mental effort every single day to master all of those skills. And they can do the same thing in achieving their goals. If they put in 25 to 30 minutes every morning to stay focused on what they want with gratitude as though it's complete, they will have success. And then finally, don't give up and don't listen to what other people say. Make sure that you are focused on what you want the outcome to be, and to start giving anything that represents. If you want more money, give some money away. If you want more time, find somebody that's as busy as you are and offer to pick up their groceries when you're at the store or take their dog for a walk. Give them some time. If you want more appreciation or love, tell somebody every day, somebody different every day, how much you appreciate them. And you will find that all of that will start coming back to you sooner. Those are your 3 things.
It sounds so simple.
You know, I've really tried to figure out a way to make it more complicated, because I think if it was more complicated, no, really, seriously, if it was more complicated, people might do it. But because it's that simple, sometimes they take it for granted. And if I were to give you a 4th one, when you start achieving your goals with this practice, don't get lazy and stop doing the practice. If you achieve your goals, create a bigger goal and use the same system for success to achieve that.
May, where can we find the gratitude formula and the path to wealth? People
can learn a little bit more about the 2 books. There's short videos on my website at maymccarthy.com. That's MaymcCarthy.com. And there's a couple of intro videos, and if they want, they can download the first 3 chapters of each book for free. And the books are available from all the online retailers, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, you name it.
The BSing with Bob Schmidt podcast is brought to you by Orange Computer. Find them online at orangecomputerlax.com.
This has been another podcastforhire.com production.